Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. Julian here, resuming my series of videos talking about individual NHL teams, talking about their lineups and their noteworthy fantasy players, and if I think you should be drafting those players at their current ADP. This episode is about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Before we jump into it, guys, drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you want to join my Fantasy Tip Patreon League, the link is down below to my Patreon. Sign up for my Patreon, DM me your interest, and then you get to play in the Fantasy League against myself and Max, and the winner gets some awesome Fantasy Tip merch. Let's jump right into it now, and let's take a look at the lines in Toronto. And the first line is projected to be Matthew Knies, Auston Matthews, and Matias Maccelli. The second line is projected to be Bobby McMann, John Tavares, and William Nylander. On the third line, Dakota Joshua, Scott Laughton, and Max Domi. On the fourth line, Järnkrok, Roy, and Robertson. On defense, McCabe, Tanev, Rielly, Carlo, Benoit, and Ekman Larsson. And then Stolarz and Woll as a tandem in nets. So the player that is being drafted at the highest ADP in Toronto is obviously Auston Matthews, currently being drafted at an ADP of 8.5 in Yahoo Drafts. And last year, he scored 78 points, including 33 goals in 67 games. Yes, injuries have been, unfortunately, a part of his career, and he's often missed quite a bit of time with injuries. It's looking like he's fully healthy going into 2025-26, and hopefully he'll be able to stay healthy the whole year. If he does, we all know that he has the ability to score 60 goals in a season. He's done it before and can do it again. With an ADP of 8.5 for a guy with that kind of upside, that's a huge steal. Personally, I have him as my 5th best player. Next, William Nylander has an ADP of 13.5. He is nice because he does have that dual eligibility, center and right wing, but an ADP of 13.5 is a little bit too high for me. Now, yes, he's now the number one right winger in Toronto if he wasn't already. With Mitch Marner gone, there's no more doubt about that. But Nylander, to me, is definitely a top 40 player, probably even a top 30 player. But he's not a top 15 player, and you're drafting him a little bit early if you draft him at 13.5. It probably won't tank your draft if you do that because he's still a great player and does definitely have that kind of ceiling. But his floor is a little bit lower. That's why personally it's a bit too early to be drafting Nylander, but really not the end of the world there. And next at an ADP of 72.5 is John Tavares, and last year had an amazing season with 74 points in 75 games. And he was one of my favorite players to be drafting last season because his ADP last year was over 100. This year it's back down to earth a little bit at 72.5. He's still very good value at 72.5 since he is a top 50 player to me. However, there are so many good natural centers that you can get as a real steal later in your draft that earlier in your draft, I would focus on other positions that aren't natural centers. So if Tavares slips to like the 100 mark, absolutely scoop him up. But at 72.5, still good value, but the natural center position is so deep and you can get such good value that it's not that good value at his current ADP. With an ADP of 92.0, it's Matthew Knies. And Matthew Knies had himself an amazing year last year. With 29 goals and 58 total points, I'm fully expecting him to hit 30 to 32 goals this year at the very least and have himself a great season because he's glued onto that top Toronto power play this year without a doubt, especially with Marner gone. Then Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll are being drafted at an ADP of 90.5 and 164.5. Now, while I do see Stolarz starting more games than Woll and doing better overall save percentage and GAA wise, he is going a lot earlier. And I think Stolarz might get 45 starts to Woll's 37, something like that. It's a pretty even split, but a little bit more going Stolarz's way. I don't think they're going to give him too many starts in a row just because they want to keep him healthy. And he did get injured last season, so they don't want the similar thing to occur. It'd be smart to limit his starts a little bit, and I think that's what they're going to do. So both these guys have value, and at their current ADPs, they're not horrible value. Stolarz is really valuable in categories leagues because you don't need so many starts in those leagues. You just want really good stats. And Woll is going to kind of be valuable also more in categories leagues, a little bit in points leagues, just not overly valuable since his starts will be limited unless Stolarz gets injured again. Next we have Matias Maccelli, and he had a horrendous season last year. Is that like a third-year slump? Is that a thing? I don't think so, but he did score 49 and 57 points in the previous 2 years with the right deployment, so he definitely can bounce back. He's still super, super young, and even though he only scored 18 points in 55 games last year, I still have faith in the guy, especially if he plays on the top line with Auston Matthews, as he's currently projected to do so. At only 8% owned, he's definitely a great shot in the dark with a late round pick in a deeper league. Then Bobby McMann doesn't have an ADP just like Matias Maccelli, and he could definitely be a top 200 player as long as he does play in Toronto's top 6. And he does have quite a bit of playing time already next to Tavares and Nylander. And he's only 3% rostered, so he may start the season over there in the top 6. It's not a horrible shot to take in a really, really deep league. Keep your eye on training camps, and if he does start in the top 6, he does start with a little bit of value. Then Morgan Rielly, who has an ADP of 130, and he is the definition of a boom or bust draft pick. Now, Rielly always does seem to do well every second year, so after the horrible year last year, he could have another bounce back great season. The reason that he did do so bad last year, or at least part of the reason, is he did lose power play 1, and Toronto opted to put 5 forwards on power play 1. Now, one of those key forwards, Mitch Marner, is gone. So he should gain back what essentially brings back his fantasy value in the power play 1. Keep an eye on training camps to see if the Leafs actually do put Morgan Rielly back on power play 1. But if they don't, I don't think he has a lot of value at all. But if they do put him back, his fantasy value could come back with it. Jake McCabe is a defenseman who's not awful. He's 5% rostered currently in Yahoo leagues, and I don't absolutely hate this pick if you're in a super, super deep league. The peripherals are okay, and he'll definitely finish as a top 70 to 75 defenseman. That's not anything spectacular by any means, but if you are in an insanely deep league, he's probably going to end up being rostered just because of that safer floor. Max Domi is someone who I love a lot, obviously. He used to play with Montreal, had a crazy career-high year, scoring over 70 points when he played for Montreal. He has no fantasy value, though, if he does play on the third line in Toronto. Even if he plays on the second line, his fantasy value is pretty limited. The only way he really has fantasy value is if somehow he gets on the top power play in Toronto instead of a guy like Morgan Rielly, or if there's an injury. And Oliver Ekman Larsson has no fantasy value in Toronto unless they give him power play 1, which they did do for a small stretch of last year, and even then his fantasy value was pretty limited, and his peripherals are really only okay. I'm not a big fan of his peripherals, only 1 hit, 1 block, 1 shot per game, which isn't really great. The next player coming from Vancouver is Dakota Joshua. He's known for his hitting, always gives you a great floor with hits. And also, he scored 2 seasons ago 32 points in 63 games. So a point every 2 games is not bad. He's only 29 years old, and if he can find that form again, he definitely can have some value in Bangers League. He just got to start putting up those points and continue to hit, and then he's definitely got at least some kind of value in Bangers League. The next guy is Scott Laughton, who's also projected to be a third liner in Toronto, and I'd avoid him since the players that he is playing with aren't really that great. Laughton has had value in the past in Philadelphia, but for him to have had that value, he usually has to play in the top 6. So if there's any kind of injuries to Toronto's top 6, it's possible that Laughton gets moved up and starts having value, but for the time being, I don't see it. And finally, Easton Cowen is a very, very talented prospect, and they absolutely love to talk about the guy in Toronto. He's only 20 years old, though, and if he does look good in training camps, it's possible that he makes the team, and perhaps he plays with Auston Matthews. That is pretty unlikely, though. For now, avoid Easton Cowen, and I'll keep you guys updated on the training camp situation if he maybe looks amazing, and then maybe we'll take a look at him. And that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, drop a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll catch you all in the next episode of Fantasy Tip.